Hello everyone. Today we will have a very important topic with a deadline end of January, just immediately after your Christmas vacation, and it is called Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism CBAM. Before we start, I give you a quick introduction about Comply Market. Comply Market is a Munich-based company with focus on using software and artificial intelligence technology to solve product compliance and sustainability problems which face manufacturers and suppliers. Some of our products comply risk, which is a smart tool to conduct material risk assessment, and it is very useful for PFAS reporting in US because it can identify where PFAS is located in your products. Second product of us is Doc, which is tool to collect compliance information regarding product compliance, material compliance, or sustainability from your supply chain. Third product is Comply Intelligent, which is a huge database with hundreds of thousands of regulations which are processed using artificial intelligence, and the tool can create a product compliance requirements report of each of your product in each country in a few minutes, and you get it in any language you want. It's a very smart tool. You should try it. Comply file creates technical file in a few easy steps. Comply pass creates a digital product passport, and we can also build customized software for product compliance and sustainability. If you need a special customized software, that's something we build for some of our customers. Now, understanding carbon border adjustment mechanism CBAM. The problem you are dealing with is called carbon leakage. Um, um, we have now in the EU a mechanism called ETS, European EU Trading System for Carbon. So when companies of heavy emission or of emission of carbon dioxide in the EU, um, those companies they pay money for their production of carbon dioxide or greenhouse gases. And they have some allowances, but after that they have to pay money and buy a certificate for that. So what happened? Just some companies or many companies moved their production outside the EU and brought final products to the EU. And that was just moving the problem from one place to another place, and we all share the same atmosphere, so it will never protect the EU to work alone in this problem. In addition, it harmed also the European economy because companies found production outside the EU cheaper. And this problem called carbon leakage, and it will be handled using the CBAM. CBAM puts a fair price on pollution created when making things. For example, now when you import products to the EU, products under scope, then you have to declare your carbon emission for those products in the country where you have manufactured the product. And then for this carbon emission, you have to pay money which for it, which is called certificates, similar to the ETS certificates in the EU. And by this way, production polluted production or production of emission gases outside or inside the EU will have the same price. So it will not be, in future um, that when you move your production outside the EU, you have a cheaper price because some countries don't have legislations for carbon emission. No, it will not work anymore. Now, when you have to declare your carbon emission and pay money for it in terms of certificates. That will make your price as much expensive as when you have your production inside the EU. What's happening? The tool is introduced gradually. As I told you, it will start the end of January next year, and 2 years transition state, and then we will have in 26 definitive period when the tool will start in reality and you start to pay money. So first 2 years you just report, and if you don't report you pay a fine for sure, but you pay for a certificates beginning from 2026. Yeah, that's what I made a summary of it. It will make sure that carbon has a price everywhere, and it will stop making imported goods to have advantage over products made in the EU, and it will make a fair market, and it will follow also rules of the World Trade Organization. How how does CBAM work with the ETS, European Trading System? Um, First thing, we consider the real emission um, of your company outside the EU. So we need the real values of the actual emission of greenhouse gases outside the EU. And then we will have the same price of certificates. If you have paid money outside the EU, in a country where this country does have a mechanism for carbon, and then you have to pay money for your emission, good thing you can deduct this money and you don't have to pay them again. Now, which products are under scope? Cement, iron and steel, aluminium, fertilizers, hydrogen, and electricity. Those areas were chosen based on our experience from ETS because they make more than half of the emissions of the industries covered by the ETS. However, the scope can increase in future. We have first 2 years just a learning phase. And how can you check your products? We have HS code, and you need to check the HS code or CN code because for example, electricity is just clear, and hydrogen is clear, but for cement you need to check different kinds depending on your CN code. And also fertilizers, same thing, which are under scope, and iron and steel. That's also you still need to check different scopes. For example, you have tubes, pipes. That's something under scope. That's you need to check it. So those are the HS code. For aluminium, you have also certain HS codes. And which countries are under scope? Companies which are not part of European trading system, so you can say countries outside the European Economic Area and Switzerland. Even if you buy import electricity, that will be same thing. But if you are in a country participating in the ETS mechanism, you may get exempted. However, there will be a revision in 2030. Transitional period will be from 1st of October, last October, and until end of 25. And you have to do first reporting. Again, please don't forget. So just look to this number. 1st of October for between if you between the period of 1st of October until the period of 31st of December, you need to submit your emission or make your declaration for this period. And when you have to make declaration, you have to make a declaration end of January 2024. During the transitional period, we have those products under scope, and importers will have to just report. You don't need to pay money because the EU needs information during this stage. Remember that you have your first deadline in end of January. After, if you don't meet that, or then you have to pay fines. No import stop, but you have to pay fines, and that's different from what will happen in 26, because now just pay fines if you don't meet the deadline, but in 26 just got import stop. You cannot import. We are in learning period, and information collected during this time will be reviewed, and thus according to this table you can understand when is a reporting period and when you have to submit it. On the left side, reporting periods, and on the right side, submission due. Penalties. So it will be between 10 to 50 euro during transitional period for each ton when you don't report it, or if the authorities will ask you to do a correction and you neglected that. So you will pay a fine between 10 to 50 euros, but that's during the transitional period. After transitional period, just you cannot import products. Who should report? Usually the importer, and or you may have indirect customs representatives if you have one doing that for you. And usually each subsidiaries, they have EORI number, and if doing for many, then we have the indirect custom representatives. Report structure will be like that. That's the general structure of it. And the report should include information, total quantity of each type, CBAM good, actual total, embedded emissions, total indirect emissions, the carbon price due in country of origin for the embedded emissions, the imported goods. Look to this matrix, so you can understand for each products what you need to report based on different type, but that will be um, you, because now we need to direct indirect emission during a testing period, but after that what you need to report. So for electricity, for example, you need to report greenhouse gases, so only CO2, and emission coverage during transitional period. For electricity, you need only direct emission, but for during transitional period, for all others, you need direct and indirect emission. But during definitive period, that's the period after 26, it's called the definitive period. For fertilizer, cement, direct and indirect emissions, but for iron, steel, aluminium, hydrogen, you need only direct emissions, subject to review. Electricity, direct emission. And for electricity, for example, there is no method for determination of indirect embedded emissions. There is two guidelines from Europe, from the CBAM, one for your producers or manufacturing facility outside the EU, how to do calculations, and one for you in the EU, inside the EU. And that's kind to now during this webinar it is executive summary, I would say, but if you want to dig deeper, then we can arrange an appointment. Because if I explain everything, it will take a lot of time. You need to understand what is the difference between simple goods and the complex good. And the simple goods, they have zero embedded emission, because emission for simple goods are only from making them. Complex goods includes embedded emissions of specific materials used in them. This, for example, in making cement, the main part is cement clinker, and thus relevant with emission counted. Direct, you need to understand what is the difference, what is direct and indirect emissions. Direct is like energy used for heating and cooling, but indirect emission, the emission coming from making electricity used in producing CBAM goods. Where to submit reports? You go to this website and you register first, and once you get approved, then you start submission, and need to provide some in the transitional registry. You'll find your trader portal, and also the component authority portal, one for national authorities and one for commission, and user access management, registry, backend services, public CBAM page on European website. The reports are for each importer, each CN, and each installation. There are two ways to fill the data. Just you can type the data directly in the CBM transitional registry website, or prepare XML file and just upload it. And there is a template for it. You can find it under this link. Who can sign up a company as a declarant? Any persons who can represent the company and get in touch with national component authorities. And this account should be kept private after, but or shared with authorized people. No more than one person can work in a report at the same time. And there is a way to develop the system so others can fill the report without sharing own login details. During the transitional time, the commission will have also several tasks. They are keeping track on the information. They are reviewing reports and making a monitorship of what's happening, and to make required update of legislations, because they need some data to improve it. And there will be a first check about on the report, and you may get a question from authority to do corrections. You can report in any EU language. Yeah, as said also, you need to report at least 3 months. And if you don't have the data, you can use the data from 1 year before, and speak about transitional period now. You need to check, for example, in cement, if cement clinker is used, then you have to consider its emissions too. Thus, if you remember the table, with a summary table that was clear on it, that's during transitional period, you need to report both direct and indirect, in which positions. But after 26, there will be another change. During transitional period, that's something very important. You can use default values, and what is there is a joint research institute a data published which you can use to calculate those default values. I will share with you the link in next slides. And this is allowed during first three reporting periods without any specific limits. And also for materials that don't, don't contribute more than 20% to the total emission, you can make estimate values. After you can uh, after the first three reports, you can use these default values, but again, yes, if you use more than 20%, if for materials which are contributing up to 20% of the total emissions. And the Commission will revise that by 2025. Um, During the transitional period, it is more relaxed for when you use default values. After during the definite period, there will be we are waiting from the Commission to have more specific default values. Under this link, you can find from Joint Research Institute, you can find the default values. After the transitional period, when we come to the definitive period, then we will need to work similar to ETS. So you need to buy a certificates like ETS system, and for 2026, you will buy certificates by end of May 2027. And after that, only authorized CBAM declarants are allowed to import the goods. Otherwise, you cannot do business in the EU. You will be blocked in the customs. If you have paid already money in your original country of production for carbon, you can deduct them. So if you provide complete details about what you have paid in um, original country, any special pricing system for you, and then you can make adjustment. We are waiting for here more detailed information by after transitional period. How you get compliance? Then first step, what you need to do now is just to define your products, check your HS codes, which products are under the scope, and then you collect information from your suppliers. There is a template. It is a voluntary template or optional for you. You can provided from European Commission that you can use to collect information from your factories. They fill it, and then you get a summary of information that you have to report. That is easy, effective, recommend it, but it is optional to use. And also you need to register. It takes time to be approved, and you need to meet indefinite period. You need to report by 31st of May every year, but now during the transitional period every 3 months. Don't forget your deadline, end of January 24. You will need to buy CBAM certificates as well, and have evidence of payment, and you keep documentations of what you have. If you have, you need to develop probably a digital solution to track emission and for your data collection. and for information exchange to avoid mistakes, because mistakes will mean fines. What we can offer you here, in our company, we have our software comply doc. It can be as a digital solution for you to collect information from your suppliers and prepare. We can also prepare your declaration in the system and train your suppliers about in how to provide you with such information. If you have any questions, please drop us a or drop me an email or call me directly. Thank you. Bye bye.